Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the start of the meeting of the City of Parksville. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and the traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. To start our meeting today, we have a public hearing. The public hearing for Wednesday, September 6, 2023, I'd like to call to order. The public hearing is being convened pursuant to Section 464 of the Local Government Act to consider the proposed zoning and development amendment bylaw 2023, number 2000.144, and zoning and development amendment bylaw 2023, number 2000.147. At this public hearing, any person present who believes that his or her interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaws shall be given an opportunity to be heard on the matters contained in all the proposed bylaws. However, it is important that all who speak at this public hearing restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaws, and it is my responsibility as chair of this hearing to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. Those of you who wish to speak concerning this proposed bylaw should at the appropriate time commence your address to the council and public hearing by clearly stating your name and address for the record. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaws. It should be noted this public hearing is being recorded and web streamed live, and the recording will be posted to the website. The main function of council members is to listen to the views of the public. It is not a function of council at this time, at this public hearing, to debate the merits of the proposed bylaws with individual citizens. Everyone who deems their interest in property to be affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this meeting. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. If you wish to provide a written submission to be included in the record of the public hearing, you must hand in that submission to the corporate officer prior to the close of that part of the public hearing dealing with the bylaw you are speaking to. Once that part of the public hearing has been adjourned, council is not able to receive any further information from public on that matter. During a public hearing, people sometimes become enthusiastic or emotional. Regardless of whether you favor or oppose any particular application or argument, please refrain from applause or other expressions of emotion. Restraint enables others whose views may or may not coincide with your own to exercise their rights to express their views, and enables all views expressed to be heard in a setting that is impartial as possible. I will now ask the corporate officer to introduce the first item on the agenda, bylaw 200.147. Ms. Weeks, if you would, please.
Yes, thank you. In general terms, the purpose of the proposed amendment bylaw is to facilitate a residential care use or facility for up to 4 persons receiving special care or assistance where single-family dwelling is permitted. Hard copies of the staff reports and related information respecting the subject amendment bylaw have been available for public examination online and at City Hall located at 100 Jensen Avenue East in the Parksville Civic and Technology Center since July 18th, 2023. As of 10 a.m. today, Wednesday, September 6th, 1 item of correspondence has been received in favor of this application.
Thank you, Mrs. Weeks. I would like to invite anyone who would like to speak to come forward to the microphone and give their name and civic address for the record. For the second time, anyone here that would like to speak to come forward. 200.147 bylaw. For a third and final time, anyone would like to speak to this bylaw? Thank you. I would like to ask for a motion from council to receive any correspondence. So moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Beal. All those in favor? Yes, thank you. I'm going to call that again, because Councillor Gaur wasn't on video at the time. He's here now. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. That is carried. I'd like to ask for a motion to terminate the public hearing for zoning and development amendment bylaw 2023 number 200.147. Motion to terminate this public hearing is Councillor Grenz, seconded by Councillor Wood. All those in favor? That is unanimous. That carries. Thank you. I will now ask the corporate officer to introduce the second item on the agenda, bylaw 2000.144. Mrs. Weeks.
Thank you. In general terms, the purpose of the proposed amendment bylaw is to rezone portions of the subject property at 1170 Resort Drive, legally described as Lot 1, District Lot 123, Anus District Plan VIP 67106, from the agricultural A1 zone to tourist commercial CS2 zone. The portions of the subject property proposed to be rezoned are located between Island Highway East and Resort Drive. The proposed change in zoning will facilitate tourist accommodation and associated resort uses such as restaurant and spa. Hard copies of the staff reports and related information respecting the subject amendment bylaw have been available for public examination online and at City Hall, located at 100 Jensen Avenue East at the Parksville Civic and Technology Center since July 6, 2023. As of 10 a.m. today, Wednesday, September 6th, 2 items of correspondence have been received, both appearing in opposition.
Thank you, Mrs. Weeks. Anyone who would like to speak to this bylaw to come forward at this time, please give your name and civic address for the record.
My name is Carmel Lowe and I live at 865 Seashell Place in Parksville. I acknowledge that the application for rezoning of the proposed lands from agriculture to tourist commercial and the associated concept plans submitted to the city would result in a development that's very much aligned with other properties on Resort Drive. Nonetheless, I oppose the proposed rezoning applications for the following 2 reasons. First, water. The proposed development, which is intended to include a hotel, a spa, a restaurant, and an outdoor pool, among other elements, will have significant operational water requirements, particularly during the dry summer season. The city's own engineering department's analysis of the proposed development states that a run-of-their water model indicated the system has adequate water capacity to accommodate the proposed development. However, this statement is simply not supported by the reality of summer water restrictions, which the city imposes annually, and which have been growing in intensity and duration and are expected to get worse going into the future. As such, approval of such a high water demand development in the absence of an additional water supply would, in my opinion, be irresponsible. Second, traffic and parking. The number of parking stalls in the proposed development is far less than the anticipated number of hotels, spa, convenience store, and restaurant guests and staff, and will exacerbate the current parking challenges many of the properties on Resort Drive currently experience. It will also lead to backup of traffic on Highway 19 as the entrance to the development is so close to the highway. The city's engineering department states that the traffic impact assessment that was completed indicates that existing infrastructure can safely accommodate the development and no new upgrades are required. However, the increase in traffic resulting from this development will, without any doubt, exacerbate the safety challenges current residents in Resort Drive, San Parai, and the Riverside Campground face when driving to the downtown area, especially during the busy summer months. To deny this or not put in place measures to resolve it before approving this application would also, in my opinion, be very irresponsible. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else like to speak to this bylaw?
Good afternoon, all. My name is Wayne Mormon. I'm a resident of 808 Mariner Way in Parksville, and I'm a retired civil engineer. I've been retired about 10 years. I'm not opposed to development per se. What I am opposed to is when development occurs without the science to back it. My concerns are on the water supply issue. I've been talking to council. I've been talking to people with respect to the water supply. 1465 Greg Road was one of them. I do not feel that the city has adequate water to sustain the development that's happening in the city. There is no current science that you've provided or the city has provided to indicate that a combination of the the wells and the river intake is sufficient to meet the demands. Now, as you know, last year, you were not able to meet the provisional operating rule of 1.6. That did not happen until very late because it was a late spring last year. You were then legislated or ordered to bring your water supply down to somewhere between 0.7 and 0.8 cubic meters per second.
Sorry if I may, Mr. Moorman. I do not need the background on why.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
all that I need to know is that you're opposed due to the following reasons, which you have stated is you believe there's a shortage of water. That's what I need to know. You don't have to back up
Okay.
your statement. Just give us your opinion, sir.
Okay, so you're aware that you weren't able to meet the water supply last year or the water requirements last year. You're falling below that this year as well. I don't know if you know that, but in the last week, you've fallen below the 1.0 that you're legislated to make. And I'm sorry to say, but your staff is saying you're meeting the averages. Well, fish don't live in averages. When the water goes down to 0.9, this is current information. When the water goes down to 0.9 in the river and it's not above 1.0, you're not meeting your current license. And that's the fact of the story. The other thing is that there's just an article just came out yesterday, as a matter of fact, stating that Parksville's aquifers are dropping. And I copied it off here. There's an article on the web that says that I think you're dropping the average drop in the Parksville area, in the Qualicum area, is something like I believe it's 300 millimeters or so. And so they said, well, that doesn't seem like much, but
Once again, Mr. Moorman.
Okay. So I'm opposed to this because of the lack of water that I don't think the city realizes that they're going to have. Thank you very
Point
much.
taken. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this bylaw at this time? For a second time, I would like to invite anyone that wishes to speak to come forward. For the third time, I would like anyone that wishes to speak to come forward. Thank you. I'd like a motion at this time to receive any correspondence. Was there any correspondence at this time, Mrs. Weeks?
We had 2 pieces of correspondence received as of noon today, and then 1 piece just received just now.
Thank you so much for that information. I'd like a motion to receive that correspondence, moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Beal. All those in favor? That is unanimous. That carries. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask for a motion to terminate the public hearing for zoning and development amendment bylaw 2023 number 2000.144. Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Grenz. All those in favor? It carries unanimous. Thank you. Further, just to refresh your memories, once a public hearing is adjourned, council cannot entertain any further submissions of correspondence from the public on the proposed bylaws. I would like to ask for a moment to adjourn this public hearing this time. So moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Beal. All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you. That carries unanimous. And just a comment through the Zoom, Councillor Gaur, if I can ask, it's a very dark image I'm receiving of you. If you could ask, I don't know if you can see me, but if you could ask, you put your hand up higher, and then thank you so much. Like that would be great. It's just difficult with the lighting we have here. Thank you, Councillor Gaur. That is now moved and seconded. All those in favor of the adjournment? I think we did this, but here we go. There, loud and clear. Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Graham. That is unanimous. We have adjourned the public hearing. Thank you so much. And good afternoon again. Welcome to the September 6th regular meeting of council. The city of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish nations and their traditional territory upon which we gather with gratitude. Moving to the consent agenda, do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes of the council meeting held July 17th, minutes of the special council meeting held July 20th, and approval of the council meeting agenda? Do I have a mover second for that recommendation? So moved by, yes, Councillor Martin. Moved by, seconded by Councillor Grens. Are there any errors or omissions? Oh, I see. Yes. Okay. Thank you for that, CAO Kaler. There is a change on our agenda for today's meeting. Is showing a delegation. We're showing as point 2 that we have 3 delegations today. Unfortunately, the first delegation, BC Housing, their overview of Parksville Housing Initiatives, BC Housing had to pull out as of today. We received an email and advised that they are unable to make it. So they will have to be rebooked at another time. So that's the change to the agenda that we have going on today. Did you hear that? Okay, Councillor Gaur? Thank you. Okay, that's great. No other errors or omissions? Any discussion? All those in favor of the consent agenda? That carries unanimous. Thank you so much. We have 2 delegations today. Our delegation first up is the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association 2023 Municipal Regional District Tax Renewal. Be a presentation from Mr. Blaine Seapost, the Executive Director of the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association, regarding the renewal of the 2023 Municipal Regional District Tax. Mr. Seapost, you've been here before. You have 10 minutes if you need it. Go ahead, sir. Welcome.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This morning I was talking with the town of Qualicum Beach and I had 5 minutes to give this presentation, which was not doable. So I'm appreciative of the 10 minutes. The reason why is I think all of you know that we've been working for most of the year on a destination strategy for the region. And this strategy is a long-term vision for tourism sustainability in Parksville Qualicum Beach. So everything that I'll speak to today in regards to the MRDT renewal that we're asking your support for is backed up by the work that we've done around the destination strategy. So I'll go to the next slide. Just to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about here, the Municipal Regional District Tax, it's a provincially legislated 2% tax on purchase of all fixed roof accommodations. And in our region, what we're talking about for the renewal is in School District 69. The 2% tax does not apply to campgrounds or places like that. There are 2 different streams of MRDT. The first one is the general stream, and that's collected by properties like resorts and hotels and motels, basically anything that has more than 4 rooms. Then there's another stream called online accommodation platform. And that's the MRDT that's collected by platforms like Airbnb and Vrbo and lots of other smaller ones. I think council is aware that since the OAP program was launched in 2018, Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism has dedicated the funds collected by that stream to affordable housing. And I'll touch on that a little bit further in my presentation. The general amount of MRDT is Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism's main funding source. We use that to leverage all of our other funding streams. The strategy needs to be renewed every 5 years and it needs to be approved by local governments. It has to be approved by the majority of the local accommodation sector. And then it needs to go to not only Destination British Columbia, but also the Ministry of Tourism, Arts, Culture and Sport, and finally to finance. So there's quite a long approval process, and it's vetted on numerous occasions by lots of different bodies. And annual tactical plans need to be approved by Destination BC, as well as all the performance and financial reports. So it's quite a well overseen program with tons of accountability. Next slide. So this is a bit of a graphic as to how these pieces fit together. The long-term destination development strategy that we've been working on this year is really the future vision and goals. Everything else is leading into that. So the 5-year MRDT strategy, the 5-year implementation plan, and all of the different annual plans all lead into that, that bigger goal. And we realize that there's aspects of the destination strategy that likely won't be realized for 10, 15, maybe longer years, but it's been identified as important for our region, and we'll keep on working on it until we achieve those goals. So I'll quickly touch on the destination strategy engagement process. We went to a long length to engage the community and lots of different stakeholders as part of the strategy. We had resident and tourist industry surveys. We had workshops. We had a resident listening session. We had 10 one-on-one interviews with a variety of stakeholders. First Nations engagement via an Indigenous relations consultant, arts and culture focus group, and resident and tourism industry co-creation labs. So that was all over the span of a few months at the beginning of this year. And I believe there are a number of people in this room who were a part of that consultation. We're particularly happy with the results that we got from the surveys, especially on the resident side, because we received over 800 responses to that survey, which makes it a very statistically accurate result. So quickly go through some of the strategic goals. And I'd like to point out that every one of them is aligned with at least one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And a number of them all have multiple goals that they're aligned with. So we've gone to great lengths to make sure that these goals are well aligned with the sustainable future. The first goal is a resilient tourism industry that is adaptable to changing trends, market demands, resident sentiment, and climate impacts. We heard that the focus needs to be on off-season growth. Our peak season is near capacity. So the goal would be to bring more people in the off-season. We'll also, in the next 5 years, conduct a climate impact assessment. And we'll also assess and support sustainable experiences, especially in the off-season. Goal number 2 is a year-round visitor economy that delivers well-rounded experiences every day. So as I touched on, the main goal is to ensure that there's a growth in off-season experiences. We're going to be inventorying and working with the industry to ensure that year-round event and festival programs are promoted and supported. And something that came out very loud and clear in our consultation, and this is a really interesting little anecdote that often gets a chuckle, but at one of our community listening sessions, we had a member of, I think it was a Parksville resident, stand up, put up her hand and said, "I'm 80 years old and I would love to be able to have dinner later than 7 o'clock in the evening and maybe have listen to a little bit of music and enjoy myself with my family and friends." That's currently a challenge in Parksville, Qualicum Beach, and we're going to try to address that. Maybe not in 5 years, but ultimately we need to look at that evening and off-season vibrancy. Goal number 3 is visitor experiences aligned with the destination brand that leads to high satisfaction and repeat visitation. We already have a destination that's has a lot of repeat visitors. A lot of people, Parksville, Qualicum Beach is part of their family history. They come here numerous times before they choose to move here. And so we do well that way. We need to continue ensuring that we have a place where people want to visit over and again. And another aspect that we'll be leveraging heavily there is to ensure that arts and cultural experiences are elevated, again, especially in the off-season. Goal number 4, positive resident sentiment towards tourism with diverse groups collaborating to support the destination's success. We heard through our surveys and our consultations that the residents of Parksville, Qualicum Beach and larger school district 69, they all identify that tourism is a key economic driver in our region and that it's important. What residents don't understand is how tourism contributes to their quality of life. That if we didn't have tourism, we likely wouldn't have, well, we sure wouldn't have all of the restaurants and all of the attractions and all of the things that we all love about Parksville, Qualicum Beach. We wouldn't have as much of that. And so we need to communicate that better. We've also made a commitment to establish a formal resident advisory committee to make sure that the work that we're doing is aligned with community goals. And we've committed to creating a community shared value report on an annual basis to make sure that that residents are aware of how tourism is affecting the community positively and in maybe some cases negatively. Goal number 5 is respectful and inclusive tourism industry and visitor experience for all people. We're going to work with the industry to ensure there's diversity and inclusion policies available that they can use to implement in their own businesses. We would love to work with local groups, which we already are, but especially in regards to assessing and recommending enhanced accessibility in the community. And ensuring that inclusivity and accessibility messages are in our marketing materials to so people continue to see themselves here in Parksville, Qualicum Beach. Goal number 6 is to achieve reconciliation, equity, and shared prosperity through collaboration with First Nations. We have a good working relationship with the Qualicum and the Snanas. They are stakeholders in our organization as both of them have tourism businesses. And and as I mentioned earlier, we have worked with them through a consultant to really advise the destination strategy. We will continue to collaborate in a meaningful way with the Qualicum and the Snanas and to make sure that their First Nations values and presence are more visible in the community, because that was one of the messages that we received from both nations, that although there are 2 First Nations in our region, if you were a visitor to the community, you wouldn't necessarily know that. So we would like to be able to work with them to increase visibility. And goal number 7. I'm almost done. A vibrant arts and cultural scene that contributes to the region's unique identity and appeal. I'll skip through the rest of this quickly. Resident and visitor access to recreational activities and well-maintained infrastructure. Their accessibility between like the resort properties and downtown, the beach and downtown, Coombs. There are a number of different kind of choke points in the region that we would like to work with local governments to address. And last but not least, I touched on this earlier, is the affordable housing strategy. We've been successful in working with the SOS on a affordable housing assistance for accommodations workers program for the last 2 years. We fully intend to continue that over the next 5 years. The other one is to ensure that there's funds available to support capital housing construction projects. So if there's a project that requires some support, whether it's in feasibility or whatever through a local housing society that can be proven to support affordability, we would like to be able to support that. And the third one is one that we're still working through with the ministry on, but we would also like to be able to work with local governments to address some of the concerns that we have around short-term vacation rentals and their impacts on affordability. So thank you for letting me go a little bit over. I know that there's quite a bit here to be able to pack into this short presentation, but if you have any questions, I'd love to be able to answer them now.
Thanks, Blaine. I borrowed 2 minutes from the other delegation that didn't show up.
Thank
so,
you.
Yeah. You owe them.
Okay.
Council, thanks very much for the presentation, Blaine. Very well done. You answered a lot of questions that I had already, and I see your background report as well, which I have already reviewed. Council, questions for Mr. Siebels at this time. Councillor Beal. I don't hear.
Thank you,
Keep
Mr.
going.
Mayor. I'm out of practice. And thank you, Mr. Supos, for coming here today. I actually did have a number of questions, but I had an opportunity to speak, to pose those ahead of time. And so I appreciated those being answered. I was particularly relieved to hear that there will be continued assistance to address housing affordability for our accommodation workers. I know that the SOS provides great service in that regard with their rent subsidies. I was also really pleased to see it. I have started reading this, but I didn't have a chance to finish all of it. I was reviewing it this morning when the power went out, so I didn't get a chance. But it looks like a great plan. Lovely to hear that there's a focus on the off-season capabilities for the area, and also that there's an opportunity perhaps, or that there will be, to actually work with, let's say, some local nonprofit housing proponents. Now, along those lines, if this is approved here, and I take it it's already gone through town of Qualicum Beach, so how long would it take if it's approved here? How long does it take before this plan could be fully approved, given all the others who need to look at it, and when you can actually start implementing some of this?
Mhm. Like I mentioned earlier, there's quite a vetting process with these strategies, as it should. So you're right, we already have approval from the town of Qualicum Beach. Hoping to get approval from the city of Parksville today. And the regional district, because we do represent 3 different local government areas in School District 69, instead of making 3 different applications for the 3 different local governments, we apply under the regional district umbrella. So the regional district meeting, I believe, is on September 26th. We're hoping to get their support. The deadline for submitting our proposal to the ministry is November 1st. And they have until next May to be able to give us official approval. It's an order in council that cabinet needs to address. So it can take some time. But yeah, it generally, if the local governments and the local accommodation sector and if it's made it through to that step, it's pretty good chance that we'll get approved. So we'll be proposing our tactical plan for 2024 with the assumption that will be approved. So we'll be looking to start in 2024. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Gaur, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you for the presentation. One question for our delegation from me is about the arts and culture that you talked about. Can you share, I know it's preliminary, but can you share something of your plans to work with the MAC in our city? It's a nonprofit group, as you know, and they work really hard in promoting the arts in our area. So would some of these funds be used, or like any collaboration be established with MAC in achieving those goals?
Yes. We work very closely with the MAC, and we work to elevate the exhibits that are offered at the MAC and the different programs that they offer. We would look to do even more collaboration, especially in the off season with the MAC. And I know that I think that maybe there's a couple of ideas that they have with other community groups that I probably shouldn't share in a public forum, but there's some exciting things happening for 2024 that we've already committed support for. So yeah, it's very much the MAC is a key partner in elevating the arts and culture in our region.
Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Wrong one. There we go.
You're good.
Thank you for your presentation. That was excellent. I'm on the liaison for the museum, Parksville Museum, and they are expanding, and I'll be talking about it later in my liaison report, more this winter. And so I would just like you to know that. I don't know if you know that, but they have a manager who will be there for so many hours all winter, which is helpful because the president and the board can't do everything. But they have amazing visions. They have 40 years anniversary this year. And so I just wanted to let you know that. Okay, thank you.
That's very good to hear because if I could just share a little anecdote, one of the main segments of visitors that we have coming to Parksville Qualicum Beach is called Authentic Experiencers. And one of their main motivators for travel is to discover more history of a region. And by not having one of our museums in the area closed for the winter, it hasn't necessarily been conducive to addressing that. So I'm very happy to hear that the museum will be open this winter. But even a few days a week is a good start. Yeah. Okay.
Your microphone's off, Councillor
Okay.
Martin.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. Through yourself to the delegation, I just want a quick comment and say thanks, Blaine, for all the work you're doing. I really appreciate the community engagement that I see in this document that we just received today. I haven't memorized the entire thing because it's been a bit of a fast-paced day, but really appreciate the work that you're doing. And the community engagement is an important one to listen to the community out there and see what the general sentiment is with regards to tourism. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
And one question that I had, Mr. Sebos, is you mentioned about the Resident Advisory Committee. Could you elaborate on that? Is it already formed, or are you looking for participants, or what does that look like?
Yeah, not formed yet, and we will be looking for participants. Yes.
And so you just be advertised looking at it. And so the Resident Advisory Committee is just going to help you work on maybe a suggestion of policy, or is it the nuts and bolts of the organization?
We haven't determined the details of the terms of reference yet, but it would be that sort of thing. Like if there's something happening in the tourism industry that the community would like to either learn more about or share a concern for, this will be a channel for us to be able to get that feedback on a more regular basis. Because something that we did here through consultation is that the residents don't necessarily feel like they have a say in how tourism is being developed in the area. Whereas like the resident advisory committee won't necessarily be the end all be all by any means, but at least there'll be a channel there for us to share concerns. And some of that might be sharing with the city or with other stakeholders. So yeah, I'm very much would probably look at maybe working with your staff, because I know that you have lots of advisory committees on getting some terms of reference to help with that.
Thank you. I applaud that initiative.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a great idea. Any other questions for Mr. Sebos at this time? That's it, Blaine. Thank you very much for your presentation. Well done. Okay, moving right along with the business from the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the following recommendations? So get relaxed. Here we go, because there's 4 long ones. The recommendation that point 1, that the correspondence from the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association dated August 4th, 2023 regarding the renewal of the Municipal Regional District Tax, the MRDT, for the city of Parksville be received. Point 2, that council support the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association's renewal of the 2% MRDT for the city of Parksville. Point 3, that council support MRDT amounts collected by accommodation providers within city limits per city bylaw to be provided directly to Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association by the province. Point 4, that council support the use of MRDT collected by online accommodation platforms known as OAPs toward local affordable housing initiatives aligned with affordability assistance for accommodation section workers, supporting local governments in short-term vacation rental research and potential regulations, and supporting affordable housing capital construction projects. Do I have a mover and a seconder for those recommendations? So moved by Councillor Grenz, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any further comments? Councillor Grenz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I I've had the privilege of recently being appointed as the liaison to the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association. And so I just thought I'd maybe quickly mention a few things about this process, which I was able to watch take shape a little bit through the past few months that I've been on the liaison position. So notwithstanding the one small typo on the strategic context where it says 2018 and 2029, when it should say 2018 and 2019, the strategy is really excellent. And I think we are very well served by this organization in our community that is focused on working collaboratively in the community with a variety of stakeholders. Not just focused on the tourism sector per se, but also on being a good member of our community generally. And I think it's a good example to all of us and all the community groups in our community of how to operate with a very wide lens that takes into consideration climate change, First Nations reconciliation, as well as the needs of the community when it comes to affordability and all the other challenges that we face. How can this organization move the dial on these issues as well? Is very great to see them use their organization to do that, in addition to serving the tourism sector, which is, of course, a very, very critical part of our local economy. So I just want to say that before raising my hand in favor of this MRDT.
Thank you for that, Councillor Grens. Any further comment or discussion? To echo, I too feel that we are well served by your organization, sir. Thank you so much for your efforts. Well done. All those in favor? Carries unanimous. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next delegation. Our next delegation we have today is Highstreet Ventures Incorporated regarding a zoning and development amendment application at 413 Wembley Road. A presentation by E. Delorme, Highstreet Ventures Incorporated regarding the zoning and development amendment application at 413 Wembley Road. Gentlemen, you have 10 minutes. Thank you. I'm not quite on, I don't think. There you go. You're good. Thank you. Very unfair.
Thank you, Worship and members of council. Neil Bolton, VP of Development, and Eric Delorme, he's the development manager on the file. We're the developer and applicant for the proposed 413 Wembley Road project. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we'll be talking about today. I'll cover the main points, just kind of who we are as Highstreet. Eric will get into discuss more of the details of this application. So who we are, based out of Kelowna, BC, Highstreet Ventures has been developing wood frame multifamily residential buildings since 2005. We specialize in designing, building, and operating sustainable condominiums and rental buildings across BC and Alberta. Building environmentally responsible real estate is important to us and reflected in our company goals. We are targeting 2,500 net zero ready homes by the end of 2024. We are well on our way towards that goal with over 1,000 currently built. We have over 2 million watts of solar installed to date. One of the projects actually that we're currently working on is right across the street from City Hall. So you've got sort of firsthand experience on what we're doing there. Just want to touch a bit on the Highstreet way and what we put into our buildings. So sustainability, it's at the core of who we are and what we do. We build a carbon-free home. So what does that mean? It means, as you know, residential homes can be, large emitters of carbon, and our projects, on the other hand, are fully electric. So we don't even run gas to our sites. We take a lot of pride in reducing that carbon footprint. BC Energy Step Code. So all our buildings target Step Code 4, which is the highest of the energy step code possible. The high performance buildings provides greater occupant comfort and minimizes the energy having to pull from the grid. Solar. we provide solar panels on all our projects. Typically, it provides enough power to power the base building functions of the building, and then any additional will supplement any of the EV charging below grade. Again, reducing the amount of energy pulled from the grid. Quality inside, it's what's inside that counts. It's not just about creating great looking buildings. We have a very robust envelope and airtight buildings, which result in less energy and to heat and cool your home. So it can be up to 75% less than a building code minimum building. Some other features we include are flood protection, low flow fixtures, LED lighting, and energy saving appliances. Last topic I'll cover here is the double warranty. So you're probably used to the 2, 5, 10 that you typically see warranties out there. Highstreet doubles that warranty. So we cover 4 years for electrical and plumbing systems, 10 years for building envelope, and 20 years for building structure. This gives peace of mind for the end user, and we're happy to provide it. I'm going to hand it over to Eric now for more of the details of this application.
Thanks, Neil, Your Worship, members of council. We're happy to be here, so thanks for having us. May as well just start with some context to the site here. So the site, or the 1.05 hectare site at 413 Wembley Road, is located on the intersection of Wembley Road and Church Road, directly across the street from the Wembley Mall. Currently, it's comprised of one legal lot and is zoned RS1, so single family residential, as per Parksville's zoning and development bylaw number 2000. We are proposing a rezone to the OCP supported RHD4 residential high density zone to facilitate a multifamily residential development in the development permit area of Parksville intended for multi-unit and intensive residential development. So the main focus of this development is to be in step with the City of Parksville's OCP, as well as the development permit area guidelines, providing the necessary transition from the commercial developments downtown and all the way through the Island Highway areas. Sitting just south of the Wembley Mall, this site holds incredible potential for compact residential development, consisting of extensively landscaped multi-level apartment buildings as envisioned by the City of Parksville's OCP. So with the RHD4 zoning, we will be proposing 2 multifamily buildings, which will be designed in response to site location, appropriate building heights, forms, setbacks, paying close attention to buffering from the adjacent single-family residential land uses in the regional district. And wherever feasible, mature, healthy trees will be retained and incorporated into the overall site design. This minimizes excessive hardscapes and maximizes the green space, privacy, native vegetation all throughout the site. So the intention of this design and character really is to provide the City of Parksville with a high quality site that truly does respect its surrounding uses. So in addition to bringing sustainable multifamily housing to the Wembley Road area, this development in particular has an opportunity to stand out in its ability to provide community benefit where the rural integrity of the area is maintained. Potential greenhouse gases typically associated with residential development are eliminated. Increased densification of the area supports existing commercial economic growth. We have a large variety of living spaces that we'll be providing to cater to families of all different sizes and needs. EV charging will be available on site. Building electric demands will be supplemented by the on-site solar generation, again, reducing the amount of electricity pulled from the grid. And fluid pedestrian connection to and from the private and public realms, really focusing on enhancing and encouraging the walkability of the area. So previously, we had completed a public consultation in accordance with the City of Parksville's bylaw number 1538, where we provided an opportunity for the public to comment for both an online website and in-person developer-hosted open house event. So the multiple platforms were chosen to provide all residents of Parksville equal opportunity to comment. We were also able to mail out just shy of 800 pamphlets, so information pamphlet mailouts, directing residents to the website with further development information, as well as a portal for asking questions and providing more information on the date, time, location of the in-person open house event. We also ran 2 ads in the newspaper, the local newspaper, again, directing everybody to the date, time, and location of this event. So the open house event was hosted last year now. So that was August 18th, 2022 at the Tainamera Resort and Conference Center from 5:30 to 9 p.m. So outside of normal working hours in a conference room that provided barrier-free access with very large visual displays, as well as excess High Street staff to give the one-on-one experience for the question and answers. So the event saw a total of 48 Parksville residents with comments covering a broad range of topics. The 3 most common concerns, however, number 1 being traffic, which didn't necessarily come as a surprise for us. It did offer an opportunity for us to get ahead of this. So we did engage a traffic impact engineer who conducted an assessment of the area. And when they looked at the proposed density that we were looking at providing, their model only found very minor effects or impacts to the current traffic situation at this area. We've been working with city staff and engineering now all throughout this rezoning process. And we're coming up with ways to add walkability to this area, such as installing pedestrian crosswalks at each leg of the Wembley and Church Road intersection, as well as constructing a bicycle lane along each frontage of the development. Again, just encouraging the alternative transportation. Number 2, infrastructure, primarily water. Highstreet Ventures being a environmentally sensitive development or developer, I should say, we do use low flow fixtures in all of our buildings, and we, especially around areas that are sensitive to water, really focus on, I'll be quick, drought tolerant.
I'll allow you 2 minutes from
Okay, I'll be quick.
the absentee
I'll be quick.
delegation. So you got 2.
Drought tolerant landscaping, as well as rain gardens and the civil design for stormwater. So we can direct a lot of those rain events to the areas that need irrigation. It just eliminates or reduces, I should say, the need for overwatering. The next was landscape and trees. So we have chosen to work with a local arborist who knows this areas. They know how important trees are to residents. And we'll be with them every step of the way. So we can ensure that the trees that we're choosing to incorporate into the overall site design aren't harmed or impacted by the development process. So if I can leave you just with one thing, the intention of this development is to promote a vibrant, compact, pedestrian-friendly residential community that not only enhances the charm and pedestrian scale of the area, but also serves as a demonstration that Step 4 BC Energy Step Code compliant buildings can be available and achievable in Parksville. We really like Parksville. We don't want to build and leave. We want to be a part of this community. And we look forward to the opportunity to bring another High Street community to Parksville. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your presentation. Questions from council, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate your presentation, both of you. I've watched the other building come along, yes, by the City Hall, and I'm looking for it. I've told people have asked me, what is this? And I said, well, it's a good Kelowna company. So it's nice to hear what you're doing for the community. What I'm wondering is, I saw the picture here and I had it in my questions ahead about having you've got families you're attracting, having a small play area, whether it's xeriscape or whatever it is, how you do it for children, not just in the gardens that are there, but just I mean, I like the underground parking. I think this is great because we don't want any more blacktop than we actually need. And if that's possible, I'd really appreciate it. That's just my comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I love that you brought that up. The one slide that was earlier in our presentation was of a previous High Street community with the whole family, with the lawn games and everything. It's something we value. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to the delegation. Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. There are a number of things that I really appreciate about your proposal. Lovely to see step 4, EV charging, the solar. I am curious, I do have questions about a few items that I don't necessarily see there, but I do understand that, you know, it's not to that detail perhaps, but is there plans for extra bike storage? And picking up on something that Councillor Martin brought up, I don't see in the proposal there a common area for residents to meet and mingle, or as you say, you know, to children. I did appreciate that one slide that showed that, but I wasn't clear if that was in the plans, built into the plans for this particular site. Love the effort to preserve mature trees where possible. So if you could speak to the bike storage and to the provision of some common space, so that, because a building needs to be more than shelter. You have an opportunity to create a community, a neighborhood within a larger neighborhood. Well, I love the proximity to the mall and all the services there. It should be increased walkability. But what do we have for the social side of the human experience?
Yes, thank you. Great questions. So to start with the bike parking, we keep in excess of having the outdoor class 2 bike parking. Class 2 bike parking, we like to keep in a secure area in the underground parking. One, so that it doesn't have to go through, bikes don't have to travel through the building to be stored. And in this, or in our typical building, we like to offer enough bike parking so that at least every dwelling unit can have one bike securely stored. This development will be no exception for that. As for the amenity areas, yes, absolutely. At a high level right now, I mean, we're very early on in design development. Amenities that we're looking at right now, community garden, we think it would be well received in Parksville. Cement chess tables, again, well received here. Just items that will promote more of a social neighborly interaction. Again, city staff is fantastic with this. They're all over it. Yeah, it's nice to hear that.
Thank you, Councillor Grants.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to our delegation. Thank you for coming here today and presenting on this. Last meeting, we had another presentation for proposed development on the other side of Wembley Mall. Further building on Councillor Beal's point, I just also want to underscore the opportunity we have in the Wembley Mall area to hopefully create a village atmosphere that allows for a lot of unplanned interactions and all that. So I understand we're early in this process, but do want to underscore that I love seeing how far ahead of the curve you are. And when it comes to environmental things, step code, no gas, all that ahead of the curve. We're also moving towards, people-centered development, and how do we make sure that we're allowing people to build community where they live. And so I love to see that. My question is around the builder checklist. In our package, it's all blank. So either that's an issue with how the package came through, or we're just not to that stage yet. Do you know about that?
No, I didn't know about that. Yeah, I know that the builder checklist, yes, is a requirement. To my knowledge, it was filled out. I apologize that that's how it is presented to you. Our accessibility standards do follow BC Building Code requirements to ensure that there is a home for a wide variety of families and needs. But yeah, apologies about that.
Perhaps through to staff then, is that
I would
just
suggest that this-
oversight on the builder's checklist. that-
Yes, I would
Yeah.
suggest at this time to our CAO, if we could request a copy of the builder's checklist that he'll submitted to be submitted to council at a later date. Anyways, if that's possible, I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Councillor Grimes. Good point. Councillor Gaur.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the delegation for presenting before us. I'm sorry I'm not here in person. But one question that I have is, first of all, I want to thank you for certain things that I heard about the company being environmentally responsible, retaining mature trees, net carbon footprint, being cognizant of all those things. However, I happened to look into your tree protection plan, and your plan seems very contradictory when I saw that of the 125 bylaw protected trees, you're only planning on protecting 17. So over 100 trees will be taken down. And I understand the BC Step Code 4, but I think the approach when it comes to climate change and everything, it has to be, not one or the other. So I'm really hoping that you will preserve more than just 17 mature trees. And I can assure you, having looked at a lot of tree bylaws around BC, we have one of the most lenient ones. The other one is, if you can tell me a little bit about if these will be rentals or will these be for sale condos? And if for sale, what is the expected price range they will be in? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'll start with the tree question. Yes, absolutely. We are still continuing to work with our arborist, who is currently assessing the overall health of the stand. Currently, there is a significant amount of wind throw in the area. We want to make sure that whatever tree is left doesn't pose any safety risk to any resident or current or future resident of Parksville. And so this isn't something that we take lightly, and we want to make sure that we're as thorough as possible when selecting the trees to be integrated into the overall development. As for the rental and sales question, it's really, we wait, or we'd like to wait until the product is ready to go to market to make that determination. The market, as we all know, has been incredibly volatile. And this is a way that we can make sure that the community's provided what the community needs. Do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, just on the rental sales side of it, it is ultimately market driven. We build the same product regardless whether it's rental or sales, and we have our own operations group. So we do operate a really good community and create a good community feel. So I'm confident you'll be happy with the product, whether it's rental or sales at the end of the day.
Thank you. Okay, I just had a couple comments here. I appreciate the solar panel being actually installed instead of just being solar panel ready. A consideration is solar panel ready for commercial buildings, of course, means an entire engineering study after the building's done to support those panels. So I appreciate that you're actually installing the solar panels. That's the first thing. Is there any other question or any other options for you to consider mass timber as part of your construction? British Columbia is somewhat leading the way, and Vancouver is taking a big progressive approach. It goes to carbon storage again. Is this any ever on Highstreet's agenda or wave to have?
Sure. Yeah, it's something we've looked into. It's being primarily driven by the building code typically. I mean, we've typically speaking on 4-story wood frame, we haven't gone to mass timber. We have done some research into going higher, the 6 to 8 story, and that's when we started looking at mass timber. So yes, we have looked into it. To be completely honest, from a financial perspective, it is hard to make a lower rise heavy timber building work out, the numbers work out. On a smaller infill site where you need that density, they do work out that way, but we're currently not facing that right now, but definitely something on the radar.
Yeah, and just to further my comments, is sometimes the mass timber could be used for aesthetic reasons as well. Instead of just structural, like where you're showing columns anyways with your, I think one of your drawings had brick. Brick is what your columns type of thing. If they were maybe expressed in mass timber, you're getting a little bit of that more of the British Columbia feel, and with the carpet work built in as well. Just a thought. Thank you so much for your presentation, gentlemen. Very impressed with the mosaic so far. I love it, and I'm expecting as good or better at this one. So thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, can I quickly ask one question, if I may?
We're past time, but I'll allow it. Go ahead, Councillor Gaur.
Thank you. I was just going through the package, it's for the delegation, and I was looking at their public consultation that they did, and I could only see two comments. Did you only receive two comments from the public, or were there more?
Thank you. Yes, we did receive lots of comments. However, the public did have hesitation about documenting their comments. It's in the chart that I provided in today's slideshow. After the fact, we wanted a qualitative assessment, something to look back on, just to make sure that the comments were getting tracked. But yes, we found that strange as well.
If I may ask maybe the delegation, that slide that you actually presented, it was difficult for us to see, to pick up the numbers on our presentation. Well, I'm looking at the little screen, but it would have been difficult for Councillor Gaur as well to see that. I would suggest that since that the one that showed the bar graph, if you could actually have copies of that actually sent to the staff, that they could forward that to all council, that would be helpful.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, council. Thank you for the delegation as well. Great job. Moving on, council, we have one piece of correspondence on the agenda today. We have the Oceanside Community Arts Council, the OCAC, support for a group of 7 exhibit hosted by the OCAC and McMillan Arts Center. I would like to, at this time, look for a council has seen this letter or the actually the correspondence from the OCAC. At this particular time, I would like to, they're asking for a letter of support. So requesting for a letter of support for the Wurlitzer project, as it's known as, and the building of an annex to assist in leveraging other fundraising opportunities. So this is strictly a letter of support at this particular time. So I would like to have a mover and a seconder for this recommendation. And the correspondence from the Oceanside Community Arts Council received August 28th, 2023, regarding the Wurlitzer project be received. And point 2, that a letter of support be provided to the Oceanside Community Arts Council to assist in fundraising efforts to secure the Wurlitzer project, which is known also as the group by the OCAC and McMillan Arts Center. Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any comments further on this? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to mention I am supportive of this. I just think that we can't do enough to support these kinds of organizations that want to be here. We should be, when I say we should, I support this because I want us to have a growth in this area for sure. And this particular project would help. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Councillor Beal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I'd just like to say that the ask is for a letter of support. It's certainly not a done deal by any means, but anytime you can get letters of support, that does assist in fundraising efforts. So I certainly want to support this, and I agree with you, Councillor Martin, that supporting a growth of the arts and culture in the area, as Mr. Sepos mentioned, is helpful for our off-season tourism, as well as enriching opportunities for our residents and the larger area. So I do hope we can go ahead with this.
Yes, and thanks for that. This is early days of a potentially very exciting project. So here we are. Let's take that first baby step. let's move forward on this. Any other comments? Councillor Gaur? Okay, no, all clear. Thank you so much, council. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you so much. Reports. The first report on the agenda is a follow-up report for a zoning and amendment application at 413 Wembley Road for further consideration of a zoning and development bylaw amendment application. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the application? Point one, that the report from the Director of Community Planning and Building dated August 28th, 2023, entitled Second Follow-Up Report, Consideration of an Application for Zoning and Development Bylaw Amendment at 413 Wembley Road to facilitate a four-story multifamily building, file number 3360 PZN039 be received. Point two, that Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2022 number 2000.137 be advanced to a public hearing to be held in the forum at the Parksville Civic and Technology Center located at 100 Jensen Avenue East, Parksville, BC, on Wednesday, October 4th, 2023, starting at 1 p.m. I'll move it or second for those points. Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Grenz. Any discussion? Councillor Gaur. See you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm not like, I would like it to go to the public hearing, but I have questions, like I said previously, when I do not know whether these homes will be rentals, which could potentially help with the housing crisis, or would these be again high-end condos for people to park their money or invest in these carbon-free homes, which will eventually be taking down over 100 trees. So I'm not sure if I can support this, but I really want to hear what the public has to say. I do like what the proposal, like it's one of the high-end BC Code 4. So I like some of the good things that this proposal brings within the OCP. Yes. So there are some positives that I do like about this proposal. I really want to hear if council members are willing to put their input towards this for some discussion on this to help me make a decision at this point. I have concerns to tell you the truth. Like, this is another clear cutting the lot project and then building carbon-free homes, which is counterintuitive to how I see this. And again, would those be half a million one-bedroom condos for sale? I would not be supporting if that's the case. When other applicants have been able to tell us at this stage, this is what they're proposing, whether they're rentals, I'm not sure why there is reluctance or hesitancy on the applicant's part at this point before the council.
Thank you, Councillor Gaur. Any further comments? Councillor Grenz.
Through the mayor to council, I think in terms of what we're trying to achieve when it comes to new housing in Parksville, this proposal checks a lot of the boxes. We're looking to move into more energy efficient, more water efficient, more affordable housing. Single family home is what this is currently zoned for. Single family homes use up to 10 times the amount of water that other forms of housing use. Single family homes use significantly more energy of all kinds than higher density housing. On a previous application, the councillor was opposed to a rental project, wondering whether there's a need for more rentals in the area. There is a need for more housing of every kind in our area. In every province of Canada, there's a need for housing. And when I look at my children who I dropped off at school for the first day of the year today, and we drive by for sale signs, and my children ask me, how can we ever afford to live and buy a house in Parksville? Houses are going for over $1 million. This isn't because we're building $1 million houses. No one's building a house to make it $1 million house. They're building a house and then selling it for what the market will bear. And the market will bear based on demand and all these same normal forces that markets operate within. We do have some effect on some of that, which we're trying to do here at council, which is encourage non-market housing. And we recently opened up a building from Belina's Housing that's non-market. And so we need to continue doing that work that is outside of the market. It provides some relief to the market housing, but it's all part of a multi-faceted, multi-thronged, complex challenge that we can only do so much about here at this table. And I think for our part, we do our part of the job when we look to encourage housing that creates a sense of community, that uses less water, that uses fewer resources, and that allows for people to enjoy a healthy life with their family and be part of the solution on climate change, housing crisis, affordability crisis, all these challenges that we face, just trying to do our part on that.
Thank you, Councillor Krebs. Further comments? Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Granz did a fantastic job at summing up. I don't know if I can add much more. If these few trees don't come down here to add more housing density, then those trees will come down probably somewhere else. And I feel like this location is close to services and is an excellent location to build efficient housing density. The less housing density that we build, the prices will continue to rise on all the other housing density because that is how the market works. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll sum it up here with my own conclusions here that the housing options has to be looked at from a balanced perspective from council, whether it's from market housing to subsidized housing. We have to maintain the balance. And to the question of whether it's going to be apartment rentals or whether it's going to be condo sales is determined strictly by the market. To be a developer or builder in these days is extremely risky. It's extremely volatile market out there. We know what's happening with the interest rates right now with the Bank of Canada. And it can affect a project such as this enormously with one half of a percentage point. And so I'm pleased that developers are still continuing to put their product forward to help solve the housing crisis that we have here in Canada. And so I recognize the fact that the developers have the option of waiting until the product is ready to come on the market before they decide whether that becomes a rental or a sold unit, owned unit. So they have that prerogative. They're the ones that have taken the risk, and they're the ones that have to capitalize on whatever the market will prevail at that time. That's the way it goes, or else we'd have no housing built at all. So I'm very pleased with this, but I'm also pleased with the fact that they're doing this in a market so volatile, but they're also building to step level 4. And which is just amazing. And I recognize the amount of contribution that's going to make for the city of Parksville, because we have our own climate action initiatives that we're trying to achieve. And this helps us get there. And so that's why I'm very appreciative for it. And also I have a tendency to look at track record, which we see the track record right now is happening on 2 sides of the street, right behind our building here. And I'm very impressed with the professionalism that's going on to this site. And so I look forward to working with developers to get the best project we can for Parksville. Developers, when they come to us, they say, what does Parksville want? We want the best. We don't just want good. We want the best. We want better than everyone else, because that's what Parksville is. Parksville's a special place. We deserve the best. And that's what we want to achieve here. Parksville is the destination, as Mr. Seapost from the Tourism Association has already mentioned. I'm carrying that slogan forever, that Parksville is a destination, because we're going to have the best amount of options for housing for all demographics in Parksville. And when it comes to development, I am appreciative for developers taking that risk and taking a chance on Parksville. So I'm very much in supportive of this project, and thank you so much. So we'll move on now to.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I'll say one quick thing.
Okay, that was my summary, but anyways, go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah,
Gaur.
thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to mention that I respect what the Councillor Granz had to say and the other council members had to say. But yes, he mentioned about me opposing a rental project. I don't think it was necessary to bring a previous proposal that I voted against. Having said that, I've come with an open mind to every proposal. And that one, this is not a platform to discuss that one, but that was a totally different about the OCP amendment and how even too high density it was for that block. But having said that, I'm happy to move this to a public hearing. I heard the member of council. I respect their views on this, but I really want to hear what the public has to say as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gaur. Councillor Gaur had a second chance. Anybody else want another comment at this time? Councillor Beal, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And I would like to say that I do think that, well, I want to support this going to a public hearing. I also understand that development permit would follow along further down the line. The developers have mentioned that whether it's rental or whether it's for sale is yet to be determined. We do have some incentives for including some affordable options that may or may not be considered. But at this point in time, this is about the zoning, the change of zoning. And I do agree with what Councillor Grenz has said in that this is a very good location for higher density, and higher density is going to use fewer resources than having the same property all go to single family residential, which would also would not provide affordable options. I know that over time we want to see, or certainly I want to see, an increase in non-market housing that comes into the area. It's certainly what I heard when I went around and spoke to people, but nonetheless, I think this is a very good proposal and I would like to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Beal. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you, Council. Moving on. Under the reports, we have a follow-up report for a zoning amendment application at 187 Bagshaw Street to further consideration of a zoning and development bylaw amendment. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that the report from the Director of Community Planning and Building dated August 29th, 2023, entitled Follow-up Report, Consideration of an application for a zoning and development bylaw amendment at 187 Bagshaw Street, file 3360 PZN 048 be received. Point 2, that the applicant's public information package dated August 18th, 2023 be received for information and considered. Point 3, that council, in accordance with the bylaw section of the council meeting agenda, consider second reading and the setting of a public hearing date for zoning and development amendment bylaw 2023 number 2000.146. Have a mover and seconder for those. So moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Wood. Discussion, council. Any for discussion? Second reading, Councillor Beal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to comment that in previous meetings, the proponents have provided extensive information and answered it's every and all questions. So I really don't have anything further at this point in time.
Thank you. Yes, and to summarize as well, I appreciated what the applicant was putting forth to us and what the finished product is going to be. And I think it's going to also be another asset to our city. So thank you, council. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you so much. Another follow-up report for consideration of development variance permit at 410 Temple Street. To consider issuance of a development variance permit at 410 Temple Street. Now, this is a we have received two pieces of correspondence via email regarding this application for the development variance permit at 410 Temple. If there's anyone in the audience today or anyone in the audience here that could come to the microphone, state their name and civic address regarding this development variance permit at 410 Temple Street. Please do so at this time. Calling once. Calling twice. Calling 3 times. Thank you. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation that point 1, that the report from the Director of Community Planning and Building dated August 16th, 2023, entitled Follow-up Report, Application for a Development Variance Permit at 410 Temple Street to facilitate a subdivision, file 3090 PVP 062 be received. Point 2, that upon consideration of public comment received, Council issue Development Variance Permit 23 PVP 062 to the owners of 410 Temple Street to facilitate a subdivision of the land. Have a mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Wood. Any discussion, Council? Councillor Beal.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a couple of questions, so I hope that there's a staff member who can answer these. I'm just wondering if the proposed corner lot, does that allow for existing setbacks to the adjacent residential lot? Does it allow that those setbacks would be respected? Like, I understand that there is an adjustment, a variance to the width, but with the setbacks from the lot that's sort of behind it off of probably Willow Street, is that setback as per setback requirements?
Right. I will check to see if it's possible, if we perhaps have staff listening online. CAO Kaler.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I'll try to answer this one. So as the subdivision approving officer, our director of community planning would typically check those items through the PLA process, which is the preliminary layout approval process. But my understanding is that depending on the design, the lots would accommodate normally expected residential development, so accessory buildings and a dwelling. However, if there's existing buildings on the site, they need to be brought into compliance before the subdivision can be approved. I think this one is vacant currently, but if there's dwellings before the property lines are created, they need to work with the approving officer to either get an additional variance or remove, say if it's a shed that's no longer needed. So that would be technically reviewed by the staff so that they can't create a non-conformance through the subdivision process, essentially.
The advantages of having a former planner as your CAO.
I like to say I'm a recovering planner.
Recovering planner, not former. You never
Yes.
give up that title, CAO Kaler, please don't. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for being recovering planner.
Thank you.
Anyway, I was wondering about the driveway stand. The letters were quite explicit that we received from 2 people. And the driveway, is this a standard driveway for this lot size?
Yeah, so if I may, through the mayor, I believe that our staff actually responded to an applicant or a question from a resident on that, which council would have received, but you've been sitting in the meeting. So essentially what happens is there's a separate process for driveway approvals after the lots are created. And we have a bylaw that stipulates the width and setbacks from other driveways for safety purposes. So those are a little bit unknown at this early point, but there are requirements they have to follow in order to construct a driveway. And so there's some additional technical information in your email inboxes. And if there's more questions, we can address them at that time.
Thank you. Also, is the house going to stay where it is on the lot where there is a dwelling there and I've seen it? Is it going to stay where it is?
I don't have that information at this time
Okay.
through the mayor, but as I mentioned, if there's new lot lines being created, all of the structures on the site need to meet the setback requirements of that essentially new parcel. So yeah, at this point,
they're good questions though, but thank you.
Yes, very good. Is that it?
Thank you. Any further comments, council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you. Under the reports, follow-up report for consideration of a development variance permit at 229 McVickers Street to consider issuance of development variance permit. Council has received one piece of correspondence via email regarding this application already. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the development variance permit at 229 McVickers Street? Calling once, calling twice, calling three, seeing none. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Point one, that the report from the Director of Community Planning and Building dated August 16th, 2023, entitled Follow-up Report, Application for a Development Variance Permit at 229 McVickers Street to facilitate the conversion of an accessory building into an accessory carriage house. File 3090 PVP 063 be received. Point two, that upon consideration of public comment received, Council issue development variance permit number 23 PVP 063 to the owner of 229 McVickers Street in order to facilitate the conversion of a detached accessory building into an accessory carriage house. I have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Martin. Any discussion, Council? Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I realize this is a question about a carriage house and not division of lots, but nonetheless, perhaps our recovering planner might be able to help with this. I'm wondering if there's any consideration given to the parking and vehicular access when there is a carriage house on the property, because we have heard about some concerns with having to ship vehicles and the noise and disturbance that can cause for neighbors. So I'm wondering about that.
If I may.
CAO Kaler, if you may.
Thank you, if I may, through the mayor. So we do have parking requirements for uses, but we do not control where that parking occurs on a property. And so people who rent carriage houses are actually required in Parksville to have a business license. And our business license bylaw also regulates nuisance aspects of the particular use. So we do have some avenues to explore concerns if someone were unreasonably parking, like on, you're not allowed to park on the grassed areas, for example, or if someone was doing something that wouldn't be kind of normal, I suppose, in terms of parking. But we don't really regulate that to that level. And it's actually just not an issue that we've really had concerns about with the carriage houses, but normally we would expect obviously the owner and the landlord tenant relationship to address some of those. But in an unlikely situation, like we would perhaps have some avenue through the business licensing process if it were rented and not just a family member, I suppose. But technically, if you're renting, it's required to have a business license.
Follow up, Councillor Beal.
Thank you very much for that. So I think it really just, but it comes down to being a good neighbor, so that when people do develop or convert a building to become a carriage house, that if they can hopefully be considerate of neighbors and understand that the additional vehicles will have some impact, and hopefully try to set up the parking arrangements so that it doesn't cause excess noise or other problems for neighbors. So hopefully a good neighbor approach will resolve this. I'm pleased to hear that you haven't normally had to have many situations like this. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Thank you, CAO Kaler. Maybe don't go away yet. Councillor Grants.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick comment that we did receive. I don't know if it was mentioned, one piece of correspondence on this subsequent to the correspondence we received with the original application.
Yes. Thank you. You're also CAO. Thank you. All those in favor? That is passed unanimous. Thank you, Council. Taking on the reports. 2024 permissive taxation exemption applications. to seek council direction on permissive taxation exemption applications for the year 2024. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation that point one, that the report from the manager of administrative services dated August 22nd, 2023, entitled 2024 permissive tax exemption applications be received? Point two, that the properties contained in Appendix A entitled Tax Exemption Request for 2024 dated August 23, except for the Oceanside Cadet Youth Society, Parksville Qualicum Fish and Game Association, the Parksville Curling Club Society, the Parksville Lawn Bowling Club, the Boys and Girls Club of Central Vancouver Island, the Parksville Lions Senior Citizen Housing Society, the Kingsley Low Rental Housing Society, and the rail track properties be granted a 63.8% permissive tax exemption for the 2024 calendar year in accordance with the limits established by permissive tax exemption applications policy number 6.15. Number three, that the Oceanside Cadet Youth Society and the Parksville Qualicum Fish and Game Association be granted a 31.9% permissive tax exemption for the 2024 calendar year in accordance with the limits established by permissive tax exemption application policy number 6.15. Point four, that the Boys and Girls Clubs of Central Vancouver Island, Parksville Lawn Bowling Club, Parksville Curling Club Society, Parksville Lions Senior Citizen Housing Society, and the Kingsley Low Rental Housing Society be granted 100% permissive tax exemption for the 2024 calendar year. And then point five, that the necessary bylaw be advanced to the statutory process. Moved by council member, moved by Councillor Beal, second by Councillor Martin. Any discussion? Councillor Gaur.
Thank you, Mayor. So for this one, I have a specific question about the tax exemption for NTBC. If perhaps the CEO can answer this, like the city of Parksville is getting some tax from the province on behalf of NTBC, right? This is for the wildlife management area. And the city in addition also taxes them for the 200 Corefield, that property. How can we accommodate the request for that tax to be exempt? Is it possible to make that exemption on a one-off basis? Or are we taxing them twice since they do? I do understand they have a large property that they take care of. And it's a nonprofit group, as we know, and they're doing an important work on our foreshore. So is it possible to give them tax exemption?
I'm not sure. I heard, was there two applicants there? I heard 200 Corefield, but or 222. Is that the only one that Councillor Gaur is looking for?
If I may, through the
Yes.
mayor.
Sure.
So I guess a couple of things. So I'm not aware that the city gets any tax from the province for anything to do with the property. I'm assuming you're talking about the estuary property that Nature Trust owns. And I just want to caution that there have been some in-camera discussions that we can't get into here around Nature Trust. And I think at this current time, it's essentially the status quo for that property. And there have been other discussions that council is aware of. So at this particular point, we have legislative timelines for permissive tax exemptions. And so we're presenting items to council in that regard right now, and there will be future items coming to council in a separate process that we can't really get into in a public meeting at this point. But as far as I'm aware, there's no, we don't get taxes in lieu or anything from the province for the estuary property. I'm not sure if that was a question.
So I think in this case, Councillor Gaur, that your questions to just let you know, it's a status quo of what we had. There's no change in whether it's with the Nature Trust or whether it's at the Orchid Place development. There's been no change to that. If you have further questions afterwards, I suggest that maybe you discuss with staff after, because some issues are in camera decisions. I would suggest that maybe that would be the time to maybe get the fulsome answer to your question. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, CEO Gaylor. No further discussion, or is there further discussion? Sorry, okay, Councillor Martin. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you, Council. Under reports, we have the 2023 fall grant and aid applications. For the financial grant and aid applications from the community groups and organizations for the fall session as per the title. Do I have a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Point 1, that the report from the Manager of Administrative Services dated August 29th, 2023, entitled 2023 Fall Grant and Aid Applications be received. Point 2, that a Grant and Aid Select Committee be appointed to review and provide recommendations to Council on the allocation of the 5,000 budgeted for the fall intake. Point 3, that the Grant and Aid Select Committee be comprised of the Deputy Corporate Officer and 2 councillors appointed by the Mayor. Is there any further discussion? Oh, sorry. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this first? Yeah, Councillor Grenz moved and seconded by Councillor Wood. Any discussion on the fall grant and aid application process? All those in favor? That carries unanimous. At this time, I would like to say that carries unanimous. The 2 councillors that will take their turn at the Grant and Aid Select as Grant and Aid Select committees would be Councillor Wood and Councillor Franz. Thank you. Under bylaws, we have 3 readings under the Permissive Taxation Exemption Bylaw 2023, number 1587. Regarding the 2024 permissive taxation exemptions, I'd like to move to a seconder for the recommendations that Permissive Taxation Exemption Bylaw 2023, number 1587 be read 3 times. Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Beal. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Carries unanimous. Thank you, Council. Under bylaws again, second reading in advance to public hearing for the Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 2000.146. The text amendment to C3 zone at 187 Bagshaw Street. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? That point 1. The Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 2000.146 be read a second time. Point 2, the Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 2000.146 be advanced to a public hearing to be held on Wednesday, October 4th, 2023, starting at 1 p.m. in the forum at the Parksville Civic and Technology Center, located at 100 Jensen Avenue East, Parksville, BC. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Grenz. Any errors or omissions? Any discussion? All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Bylaw for final adoption. Plan Parksville Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 1492.7. The Max and Text Amendment to mixed use for neighborhood commercial at 285 Despard Avenue West. Do I have a mover or seconder for the recommendation that Plan Parksville Amendment Bylaw 2022, number 1492.7 be reconsidered and finally adopted, signed by the mayor and corporate officer, and the corporate seal affixed thereto? Moved by Councillor Grenz, seconded by Councillor Beal. Any errors or omissions? Discussion. Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Yes, I'd just like to say that understanding that, again, this is about amending the zoning. Yes, the zoning and development amendment. And I do look forward to seeing the DPA when the time comes. And I hope that, again, that I hope that it will include some plans for a common area for residents so that people might be able to meet and mingle and interact outside of their homes. So I do hope that that will be evident, because I just don't see that in this initial proposal, but I also realize that it's very much at a concept level and not right down to those details. So that's all.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Any further comment? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was one of my questions too. So I think that's something that we'd like to look forward to having an area where the people can mingle depending on the kind of people that are going to be attracted, there could be a little play area for young children or whatever, allow space for that, because there is space if they plan this. So
Yeah.
thank you.
That discussion for a later date. I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Gaur.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to quickly say that I voted against this proposal, and the reason it is, yes, it's an OCP amendment from just being a commercial, now this residential makes sense. But we have to also understand that by approving this, we are adding more than 30% of housing in that block, so it's adding high density. And not only that, that block also saw protected trees come down, the wetlands that were drained out. Yes, this is all to build the housing to address the housing crisis. We can all say that, yes, we want our children to buy homes and be able to afford homes. These are all good selling points, but at what cost? You still need a quality of life for the present and the future people who want to live in Parksville. Parksville will never be able to provide all the housing needs for everybody. This is just a fact. We have this limited resource, land, water, whatever. We will not be able to meet all the needs. We have to grow smart. When RDN is talking about growth management and preserving the character, Parksville is on its own path. Like, we will provide, we will do what we can, which is in a responsible way makes sense to me. But when you are taking down all the trees and draining out the wetlands, I will not be supporting this. And I will continue to oppose projects, whether they're rentals or for ownership, if they don't meet check my boxes, if they're not adding to the quality of life, if they're against not following environmental regulations like to the best level, I will be opposing this. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And my comment would be, the city of Parksville is building within the urban containment boundary that we is developed for the city of Parksville. I recognize fully that we can never solve the entire housing crisis in Canada, but we can do our part for what we can do within our boundaries, city of Parksville, which we do. You made a comment about the draining of the wetlands area as being part of the problem. And I can say as of last week, there's been remediation to some construction that was done previously in the wetlands area and has been mitigated. And I actually walked the trails through the wetlands yesterday and was very impressed by the new format that these improvements to the wetlands have done. That's going to make the wetland a very viable wetland area for Parksville, which will be treasured forever. So, and that is carrying on forward. And we have actually a pop-up wetlands tour available, pop-up on September 13th down at the wetlands area for the public to come and view, to see the proposed plans for the wetlands, to not only preserve the wetlands, but to enhance the wetlands to be even a greater asset than what it already is by proper planning with all environmental standards in consideration. So that is the good news for that. And I believe that we also addressing the tree issue that you're suggesting. Again, we do have an urban tree strategy that is going to be presented. That is, the study has already been done, And that urban tree strategy is going to be presented to council this fall for our approval. And it's very robust and done by professional consultants. And I'm looking forward to see that too, because recognizing that, yes, trees do come down in development, but it's what you do with the rest of your city with a proper arborist designed tree study on how you can enhance and to reduce our carbon footprint even more, which is where we're going and which we will be. It's on our work schedule. It's coming up this fall. So I'm looking forward to that as well, to be done in a professional manner. So thank you. Any further comments at this time? Councillor Grants.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to council. I just want to recognize some of the concerns that Councillor Gaur is raising and fully on the same page in terms of what our overall goals are. I think maybe just sometimes we differ a little bit on the approach, and I'm just concerned about some of the unforeseen consequences of some of the things that Councillor Gaur is proposing, because what we have before us here is not a decision about preserving wetlands versus having residential units being here. The decision we have to make is whether we want a strip mall here or see a strip mall with residences above it. And for me, the obvious answer is residences above it. And yes, we do need rentals in our community. We can't solve the housing crisis in our community. We can be a step in the right direction. We can be working towards the solution. We can't solve the climate crisis in our community, but we can do things that take us in the right direction as well. Anytime we're attempting to solve anything, we're going to be banging our heads against the wall. All we can do is hope to move in the right direction and not in the wrong direction. In terms of the RDN growth strategy, it contemplates growth within the urban boundaries of Parksville, and we are doing our job by ensuring that we increase the density within Parksville city boundaries, thereby relieving the pressure to create density outside of the urban containment boundary. There will be many more trees coming down outside of Parksville's official community boundaries if we just build single family residential and strip malls in Parksville proper.
Thank you for that. Call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? Councillor Gaur would be opposed. Thank you so much. Final adoption for bylaw, zoning and development amendment bylaw 2022 number 2000.142. The max and text amendment to comprehensive development CD 34 at 285 Despard Avenue West. Do I have a mover and seconder for the following recommendation? That zoning and development amendment bylaw 2022 number 2000.142 be reconsidered and finally adopted, signed by the mayor and corporate officer, and the corporate seal affixed thereto. Moved by Councillor Beal. Second by Councillor Martin. Any errors or omissions or discussion? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think there could be an amendment here. I don't know if this is the appropriate way to do this, but just to say wherever possible. I mean, there is exceptions. There's always exceptions. You know, is that an appropriate thing to put in there? I mean, there's maybe a better way to say it. Maybe our CAO might have a better way to say it, but anyway, that's what I was thinking on it. Thank you.
I'm not sure at what point you're asking for wherever possible.
Well, the amount of hours. I mean, there's. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
This is zoning and
I'm
final adoption.
I'm away. I'm ahead of things here.
Okay,
sorry.
yeah, you just
Okay.
jump down the line.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
we'll get there soon. Yes, yeah, thank you. Okay, so that was the only comments we have at this time? Okay, so all those in favor of the motion on the floor? Good, thank you. And those opposed? Councillor Gaur opposes. Thank you, council. Okay, so Point 6, there's a notice of motion coming up forward. There are two motions on the agenda today for your consideration, Council. Councillor Gaur, would you like to introduce your motion regarding the procedure bylaw amendment? Go ahead, Councillor Gaur.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine, thank you.
Thank you. 1 second. Sorry. Yes, so I'm proposing that staff prepare an amendment to Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 1541, to limit the duration of council meetings to 4 hours unless a resolution to proceed beyond that time is adopted. So I'm looking for a seconder, then I can provide more background information.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is exactly as Councillor Gaur has asked for. Do I have a, Councillor Gaur is moving that? Do I have a seconder for that motion? Yes. Seconded by Councillor Beal. Now, Councillor Gaur, you at first opportunity to speak to this. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I don't know if it needs too much of introduction, but it came out of the last meeting where we spent over 7 hours in the chambers. I was of the opinion that we would need a resolution at one time. Then I reached out to the CAO to find out like why did the meeting go on for so long. Then I was surprised that apparently the limit is set at 10:30 p.m., not like a time duration itself. And that was set by the previous council in 2018, I guess, when the meetings would start at 6 p.m. So they had a 10:30 p.m. limit. So I'm trying to make it more, I don't know, inclusive, just have 4 hours. Where the future councils may decide to start in the mornings. It's just also in line with the other jurisdiction where the RDN also has about 4-hour duration, if I'm not wrong, and Qualicum Beach about 3 hours. Just an extra hour, I think 4 hours gives us enough time for the delegations and the presentations, also public hearings to be accommodated and still have a fulsome discussion. So I'm looking for the council support on this.
Right, and I would just comment for clarity's sake, the part of the motion that reads here, unless a resolution to proceed beyond that time is adopted. So what happens is if this goes through at nearing the 4-hour mark of a council meeting, approximately 1 minute before that, the chair, myself, will stop the meeting to ask for a resolution to proceed further or or to adjourn at the required 4-hour limit. So there is opportunity for council to say they will carry on for a further time to conclude the meeting, maybe just to conclude the subject that's on the floor or whatever council decides at that time. So there is an out is, to finish on one last piece of business or so forth. So that's clarity. So that's what it is. And to also clarify, this is already in place with the RDN. And as to Councillor Gaur's suggestion that it says in our procedure bylaw that it goes to 10:30 p.m. We almost made it to 10:30 p.m. at that last one too. Yeah, so we would have been stopped regardless, but we didn't quite make it. So yeah, so I will be supporting this motion. Councillor Martin.
What I was thinking was, would you put in the motion to have the words wherever possible, or is it that give us time, like you're saying, after the, 1 minute before the 4 hours, you just get us to, or get the council to decide if we want to finish what we're talking about even?
Well, I think that just muddies the waters a little bit, in my own
Okay.
opinion, just from chairing a meeting, it's difficult. If you've noticed today anyways, I'm taking steps already to limit discussion, whereby we're only seeking new information instead of redundant information that's already been mentioned. So I think the resolution as presented allowing us that time to go over to finish off the last piece of business is quite flexible, and I think is in the interest of all of us and our staff as well.
Right,
So
okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further comments on this? Go ahead, Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mayor, through yourself to the mover of the motion, Councillor Gaur. I'm going to support this for sure. I would recommend that if you have any questions as to how long each of us were on the microphone, maybe just watch that previous meeting and skip through to your own parts. And make sure that we, ask yourself if you were as concise and to the point as you could be. And that's for all of us, including myself. Meetings are expensive to have, especially if senior staff are present. Although the chair is running an efficient meeting, it is also up to us to keep our comments nice and short and to the point, not repeat ourselves. And so I would encourage us all to watch that previous meeting and just ask yourself if you could have done a little bit better. Thanks.
And also, quite true, Councillor Wood, to let the public know that after that last meeting, the marathon that we had, we all met with senior staff as to recommendations on how we could run more efficient meetings and that were kinder and more respectfully run to each other and so forth, because being hangry and being tired does not make for a good council agenda. And so we've taken a number of steps, and senior staff have come up with a number of recommendations that all of us have discussed anyways. And so we are all doing our bit to run more efficient meetings, and this will help us to stay within those guidelines. It's just one more tool that we can, or actually I as a chair, can actually use to make sure that we don't get past that overtime limit that we're trying to not exceed. So thanking you. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you, council. That carries unanimous. Another notice of motion on the floor right now, or to be presented today, is Councillor Gaur. Would you like to introduce your motion regarding a motion to prioritize the prioritization of affordable housing policy? This motion has been placed on the agenda in lieu of notice, so council may vote on it at the September 6th regular meeting. Councillor Gaur, I would like you to present your motion if you could at this time, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I am proposing that staff prepare a policy to prioritize the review of below market nonprofit affordable housing applications for council consideration. Once I have a seconder, I will provide some more.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Gaur. Do I have a seconder for the recommendation? Councillor Wood. Yes.
So
Councillor Wood is seconded. Councillor Gaur, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Gaur, you're frozen. I don't know if you can hear me. I'll suggest that you turn on your video and turn off your video. There you go. You're back again.
Yeah,
okay,
thank you.
Yeah, okay. So the last time we had anything was, I said, Councillor Gaur, you have the floor to present your motion. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. And then I left the floor. Sorry about that. It's just the internet. So I had a meeting with our director of planning, and just to get some more information on what are we doing to address the housing crisis and the affordable housing crisis in our community. So apparently we already have some financial incentives when it comes to waiving off the DCCs and the application fees for affordable housing projects. We have this unwritten policy of prioritizing these applications. So all this motion is asking for is have this as formalized as a policy that we prioritize these applications as they come before, and so they can be considered by the council. This does not mean approval. It's just that they can jump the queue and come before us, which is already happening anyway. So just have a formal council policy. The reason I'm bringing this is also, Mayor, like, sometimes we hear like, what is the per capita affordable housing unit should we have in a city? But the more and more research is coming out, and what we are seeing across the world is the need for below market housing is more than ever. And this is important for preventing homelessness as well. Like, people are needing more below market housing. some experts are suggesting that at least 10% of the new build should be below market. And some of the countries in Europe are going as far as 30% of the new builds are being below market housing for the people. So I think Parksville definitely needs way more than what we just approved with the Bolinas housing. And this is one way of encouraging those applications to be considered before the council. On their own part, the federal government is announcing all the different kinds of programs, and then the BC government the other day announcing the community housing fund. So I think at our own level, we can come up with these policies that will encourage people to apply for these projects.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. You have second, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. And to Councillor Gaur's point, I believe CMHC here in Canada, we provide the least amount of the G7 countries for non-market housing. And so we live in a beautiful place and we see real estate prices going up and up and up. And if we want people to be able to work here and serve in these frontline jobs, we need to provide housing for that workforce so they're not commuting from Port Alberni or from Nanaimo or somewhere else. And so I am fully in support of more non-market housing. At the same time, market housing does play a role in lessening the pressure on non-market housing. So as Councillor Grenz was saying, there's a multifaceted approach to getting a little bit higher vacancy rate and easing the pressure on the prices. I would also note that when we do build non-market housing, there probably will be a couple of trees that will be taken down. Thank you.
Councillor Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I would just like to add, I would also like to support this. I think it states it's an indication of what we are supporting here. Again, when I was going around and campaigning, this was a topic that was brought up many times without me even asking. And it's also something I hear in my role as liaison to the chamber and also in informal conversations with a number of people who are involved with nonprofit organizations. And finally, in addition to helping to prevent homelessness, it can also perhaps alleviate some poverty and prevent poverty. I certainly know of individuals firsthand who are spending over half their income on housing. And to be honest, that housing is quite minimal in some cases. So that's not sustainable for people over time. So I absolutely want to support this. Thank you for bringing it up.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Gaur, for bringing this to our attention. Myself, I've had many people whose children want to live here. They live here themselves. Their children are living in their house. They're 25, 29. It's unbelievable, in my opinion. And so we have to do what we can do, and this prioritizes it. And I appreciate this motion. Thank you. I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Okay, go ahead. Councillor Grenz. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think multifaceted is probably better than what I think I said multi-thonged approach. Yeah, that one's a better one. Pronged? I think I said thonged. I digress. I do have a question through to staff. Is that if this is, so first of all, I fully in agreement that non-market housing is part of this, is one of the thongs. But my question is whether this actually helps address this challenge or whether it's simply an exercise in signaling our values. And if it is just an exercise in signaling our values, is the cost of doing the signaling worth the benefit that we get from signaling it? So that's where my question goes through to staff as to how this may, first of all, what the process is to implement this change. And secondly, whether this provides additional tools to the planning department that do not already exist.
If I may.
Go ahead, CAO.
Through the mayor to council. So it would probably take a couple of days of staff time to prepare a policy and a staff report and bring that back to council. I think there personally is some value in it in that it provides that position from council in terms of your willingness to support that type of application, but also for a lot of folks, time is money. And so if they get their answer quicker, whether that's an approval or not an approval, they can then move to the next project, or they can release folks who might be assisting them pro bono. So it does, I think, help everybody involved in those files. A lot of our folks do have people kind of helping them off the side of their desks for very limited cost or for no cost. So if they have to wait 8 months or get in the queue with everyone else, that can be challenging. And I also think it's more transparent just to let other developers know that council has made that choice. And then they can also perhaps consider whether affordable housing is a component of their proposal. So if they maybe weren't considering that, but they think their timing would be reduced by 6 or 8 months, that may be the incentive that they need to sort of include a few items of affordable housing. So staff would have to put together something that kind of discusses those things. I think one important thing would be, just from my experience as a former recovering planner, the completeness of the application. And so in the past, given the fact that we do have folks doing things a little bit off the side of their desks, I think one important component that we would need to bring to council, perhaps as a test for some of the first few, would be, are you willing to accept less information upfront? So for example, with one of our ones in town from a few years back, the application was very thin at the beginning. Normally for rezoning, we would require things like, pre-servicing assessments and things. And the council of the day, about 3 or 4 councils ago now, was willing to allow the rezoning to go forward without some of that information. So I think we can think about some of those things in the policy, and then as council has kind of given that priority, we can work through the technical, if council's willing to say, give it first and second reading without all the engineering documents, they still have to do it at a later point, obviously, before they connect to services. So I think a policy gives us a little bit more fulsome considerations that we can transparently provide to you, make sure we're on the right track, and then applicants and other developers and the community at large can also understand where you're coming from. So formalizing it is probably something staff would be in favor of, for sure.
Go ahead, Councillor Grunts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through to staff. Thank you very much for that. That was extremely helpful. I don't know if this requires any kind of amendment or anything to the motion, but I trust that staff would bring forward a proposed policy that appropriately balances the desire to have more non-market housing with still being able to process other applications, and not just bottlenecking some other way now. But I assume staff will be able to bring something through that would appropriately address that.
Sure. And if I may, just to follow up on that, even with a lot of, I would say, very forward thinking for a community of our size, we have a lot of incentives already. We unfortunately still don't see a huge demand. So I don't think that would be a huge problem for us right away, but certainly if we see an influx of like 27 applications for affordable housing, which would be awesome, we could then, refine that and come back to council. But at this point, it's really 1 or 2 every few years that come to us. And the city has supported that by providing land, for example, for very low or no cost. But I don't see that as being a huge problem right now. It would be a welcome problem a few years from now, but I think we can easily sort of bump people off. It really is just, I think, helpful for us to be able to make that call of putting that application before people who are paying fees. So I think it's a good thing to put formally on paper.
Thank you, CEO Kaler. I'll just summarize at this time. To be quite frank, I was not in favor of the proposed motion as presented. Having spoke to Councillor Gaur, I was not in favor of it based on the fact that I was afraid of it's just another policy that that we have to put in place, and policies don't happen overnight, and policies take a lot of staff work, and it's one more thing that we have to make sure that we're following the policy, and so it puts another task to our staff anyways before they're presenting it. So, and my other point is where was the need? Where is the need for a change in our policy? Because quite honestly, the city of Parksville has been very good at providing affordable housing. Our numbers are way higher than neighboring communities and so forth on Vancouver Island of affordable. You saw it in the property tax exemptions and so forth that I read out earlier, that there is a number of affordable housing projects that have, received property tax exemptions. So the affordable housing is a component of a multifaceted plan for a housing strategy, and that housing strategy has to be considered carefully by council. It is great to prioritize affordable housing because there is a need, but it is also great to keep it in balance. It has to be in balance with market housing at the same time, because realize a lot of the affordable housing projects that go through and they're actually exempt DCCs, or they're exempt property taxes, have property tax exemptions and so forth. So we have to be cognizant of the fact that if a property then goes from producing revenue to the city of Parksville to producing non-revenue, that means, because those properties are going to need services as well, that means the rest of the residents and businesses and property owners of Parksville will pay more taxes to cover that. It doesn't come for free. Someone else will have to pick up those property taxes that make that project affordable. So recognize that, and recognize as a community that we have to be cognitive that there's a lot of people struggle with any property tax increase that we put through. So we have to keep it in balance. We have to continue to have that market force housing that's paying full load property taxes as compared to the other one that is social housing. So as long as we keep that balance, it's okay. But as CAO Kaler has mentioned, we have to make sure that if all of a sudden we have an influx of affordable housing or social housing, so to speak, then we have the chance of going out of balance. And out of balance means property taxes for everyone else. And then you make properties that people are living here already in Parksville, now you make them unaffordable. And they're already in them, but they're now unaffordable because it's difficult for them to pay a higher level of tax to provide social housing for other sites that don't pay the tax. So it's great on the surface. It's a complex issue. So this in itself is I think going to be the be all or end all. So I am going to support this as it is because of our CAO describing the amount of extra work it's going to be. I believe we already do prioritize it, although we don't have a policy to say that we do. I think it's pretty evident by the amount of permits that we've approved in the last 2 councils that I've been involved in. And I'm very proud of that, but I'm also proud of the fact that the reason that we have a lot of the ones that we just mentioned with Belena's housing up on Moliette is because our planning department works very tight with the nonprofits and organizations that provide these housing options available. They make it easy to do. And they're very well, our planning department is very well respected for this. And that's why the affordable housing projects come back to Parksville, because we are easy to deal with and we allow them to produce a good product. So I'll support this. It is exactly as it is written at this particular time. Thank you. So I will call the question now. Oh, Councillor Gaur, are you voting yes already, or you just want to comment?
No, I want to thank the mayor and the council for supporting this proposal and the CAO for providing the background information. I think that really helped myself and the rest of the council make a decision on this. I want to thank Councillor Wood for seconding it, and thank you for his concern for the trees coming down. I was happy to see his green side come out finally. He tried to hide it for a long time. But I really appreciate the council's support on this. I think it's a much needed initiative. We need to do our best at local government level, and I'm thankful for the support.
You also realize that we have that 4-hour limit in place now. Yeah, so be careful. Thank you. I got to call the question. All those in favor? Thank you, council. That is unanimous. Are there any other notices of motion to be considered for future meetings? I see none. Now I'd like to move into the liaison reports, and in the interest of efficiency and to keep within our newly prescribed limits, I would ask council members to keep their updates concise. Councillor Martin, would you like to provide your liaison reports? Pardon me? Yep. Is that okay? Yeah. I just did that. Yeah, because, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I always seem to be at the bottom. I don't know why. Is it alphabetical or
You
what?
just got moved to the top. That's exactly it. You just got moved to the top. Councillor Martin, it's all yours.
Anyway, Parksville Museum and Historical Society. It has been a terrific season of music and an increased number of visitors for the 40th anniversary. A new board member, Pam Foster, organized an army of 24 volunteers to work 1 day per month to keep up the grounds. It is amazing when you go there, if you see that. It saved a lot of money. They just do 1 day, and there's going to be a volunteer appreciation event on September 28th, which I'm thrilled about because it's night and day from the other years that I was involved. In partnering with the Chamber of Commerce, there is a Friday night market starting this Friday, 5 to 8 p.m. and every Friday until October 27th. So there'll be a market there, a public market every Friday night. And the museum hours continue until October 9th, from Thursday to Monday, 11 to 6. Because of budgetary reasons, they cannot stay open at this time. They would like to stay open. A couple of days a week would be nice, like it was suggested, but it's not at this time. Maybe there'll be some more grants they can apply for. And that's a big job. So the PDABA liaison work here. The 4 events, Dance on Memorial, which was supported by the city, was a success. And I thought it was a great way to feature Memorial Avenue from a historical sense and future gathering place. During the campaign last year, I was asked many times, where is the city center? From my perspective, this is the beginning of our walkable village. I remember how it was with the Rod and Gun steps now on the city property. A winter wonderland is being planned on Memorial for the Christmas season. For July and August, the PDBA rented a lot for parking on 150 MacArthur, which was well received. With their members, they are beginning a security program with footprints, and it would be helpful for the city. The city could be involved. I think that would probably be a delegation of some sort, at some point if they want to do that. And there's a customer appreciation from October 1st to 10th for customers here. They did bring up the garbage can thing again. They would like to have the city's 3 garbage cans in the front. I guess there's 3 there to be spread further into the city, maybe. That was brought up. So that is my report for today. Thank you
Thank you,
for
Councillor
being
Martin.
the top of the list
Yeah, that's right.
for change.
I'd like to rearrange the alphabet.
Yeah.
Councillor Gaur.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll be very quick on this. This is about the Beach Fest, the sand sculpting competition and the exhibition. It was a huge success, as the council members would already know. Over 108,000 visitors came to the sand sculpting competition. The Wonders of the World was the theme this year, a huge success. And through this forum, I want to send special thanks on behalf of the city to the Beach Fest Society. President Cheryl Dill and her team, they did an amazing work. They're all volunteering their time. And in addition, Rock the Park Festival that goes alongside was a huge success with over 3,000 people attending. Just to reiterate the fact that this event is a huge economic driver for our community. And I am personally very thankful for the work that the society does. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Gaur. And I'll also point out you Rock the Park being an amazing experience. And they also followed up on the following weekend, which I attended, Symphony by the Sea. And that too was a success. Almost 1,000 people showed up for that on a Sunday afternoon to listen to the Vancouver Island Symphony. It was an amazing event. And it was just appreciated by many, as well as the appearance from the Abbotsford Youth Symphony showed up here as part of the Vancouver Island Symphony. And it was just amazing. So it really proved the new Performing Arts Theatre in the park. The acoustics were amazing. And it was a great experience. So thank you for that report, Councillor Gaur. Councillor Beal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just a couple of quick comments that the Oceanside Community Arts Council continues to be very active in the community. They actually were very involved with Beach Fest with Rock the Park and also the Symphony as they look after the box office end of things at the MAC and elsewhere. And they have many things going on, exhibits at the MAC, but also down with the Bayside. They also have some musical events coming up and continuing the development of the Art in the Garden, which is adjacent to the MAC, just beside the SOS administration building. So if you happen to go through there, you can see the garden and how it is growing. I'd also, as shifting to the library wrapped up their summer reading program, which I think was quite successful. They do right now have an external direct entrance to the library. That may be a temporary situation, I believe, until the front doors, there's some repair that needs to happen so that hopefully the library access will improve for all of our residents over time. And also, although it's outside our area, I will mention that if you do go to Nanaimo sometime, that the Diana Crawl Plaza, the side of the library there, which is in so the main headquarters, if you like, for the regional library, has a beautiful mural that's been painted on there. So that's worth a look if you are in that area. I did go down to attend on behalf of, as is in my role as a member of the library board. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beal. Can I get a mover and a seconder for adjournment? Moved by Councillor Wood. Seconded by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? Unanimous. And we didn't have to invoke the limit. Very good. Well done, Council. Thank you so much.